minutes past 7 now here on the Radio Wammo Breakfast.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Jeff Dudas from underwatertimes.com.
Yes, joining us from Miami today. Hello to you, Jeff.
How you doing, Wammo?
Very good, very good. Some interesting stories lined up. First of all, a very profitable salvage operation that's taken place.
Yes, this story comes from Switzerland. There was recently an auction for a car, and it was salvaged from a Swiss lake, made 260,000 euros, which I think translates into about 370,000 US dollars. And it was a Bugatti. And what made this car interesting is its story. It sat 53 meters underneath the lake for the last 70 years.
Goodness me! And yet it still managed to be able to, it was polished up enough.
Well, evidently it wasn't even really polished up. It's been underwater so long. They said only about 20% of it was actually reusable, so the rest of it is sort of rusted away. But the car being so rare, it actually sold for, it generated a lot of interest. Little interesting story on how it got to the lake, too. A couple different stories, but evidently something that had to do way back when in the 30s with import duties. A guy tried to bring it across the border, and it was either impounded or he didn't want to pay the duties, and so they ended up pushing the car into the lake. One story says he tied a chain onto it, and the chain eventually gave way and it sunk even deeper. And the other story said just the customs guys pushed it into the lake just to get rid of it because the guy couldn't afford to pay the duties.
What a waste!
And it's a great car too.
Yeah.
And so it sat in this lake forever. Finally, this dive club went down, and in 1967 found the car, and so it became sort of a popular attraction. And since they found the car, they could claim ownership to it, and so it sat there for a while. And then they decided to bring it up and try to auction it. They were going to give the proceeds to charity. So they, sure enough, finally brought it up, put it up for auction. And they originally thought it was going to go for like 90,000 euros, and make a tidy sum, but actually went for 3 times that. So it was a little surprising. And the guy who bought it is evidently going to put it on in display in California, sort of as is. He's not going to restore it.
Right. What world economic recession, Jeff?
Right, you pay that much money for basically a junk car.
Yeah, exactly. Next story, an interesting one involving a pet shop and a piranha fish.
Yes, this comes out of Cornwall in England. Pet shop owner sold a piranha, and he was trying to fish it out of the tank, and evidently, he tried once and couldn't get it. Tried it again and couldn't get it, and evidently his fish, he was agitating the piranha, which, as you'll see, probably not the best thing. And so the third time he went after it, the fish bit into his hand, bit into his thumb, and blood was going everywhere, and had to be taken to the hospital. And of course, it's fairly uncommon to get to the hospital, and they didn't actually believe him, but sure enough, he sort of learned his lesson with the piranha.
Yeah. Have you ever encountered any piranha fish at all?
I haven't. Only on TV, which is probably a good thing. The experts say, if you listen to them, they say this guy was, as it turned out, very unlucky because the piranhas only attack when they're hungry, and not in self-defense.
Right. Yeah, because you hear that, don't you? That they've got this fearsome reputation, but really they're quite a placid fish, and they'd rather not deal with you at all.
That's the story. They say that even though they have these very very sharp teeth, this guy was just for some reason incredibly unlucky, or they said maybe the fish was sick, and that's why it bit him.
Huh.
The pet shop owner said he got this fish. Actually, someone gave it to him because the previous owner was afraid of it and too scared to look after it, and maybe for good reason, it sounds like.
Maybe this one was a particularly angry piranha fish.
Probably a piranha with a bad demeanor.
Yeah. Finally, whales that are using a killer technique to actually hunt fish.
Yeah, this is out of some Scottish scientists were in Iceland studying killer whales, and they were recording the sounds they make, and they kept on hearing this sort of low pitched sound, and started looking closer, and they figured out they were using this unique fishing technique that they would emit this low-pitched sound and would cause the herring, which they were sort of going after, to all bunch up into this huge ball, and then they would come along and slap them with their tail, and it would stun the fish, and so they would, make for easy eating, killer whale style.
Yeah. Well, just it's a flick of the tail, and that's it.
Evidently, the tail and the sound, and they started looking around. They said, this evidently not it's a novel technique not seen anywhere else in the world, only in Iceland. So they're going to go back and study it a little closer just to figure out if this is actually only in Iceland. But perhaps these killer whales are teaching each other, this technique, and this is just indigenous to this population in Iceland, which, that in and of itself would be another interesting find. These whales sort of showing each other how to hunt and passing that along, evidently, generation after generation.
Because you do hear about whales also herding fish as well. Dolphins do it.
Yes.
We're using sonar.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is obviously some kind of teamwork, some kind of collaboration. Smart animals.
I wouldn't want to mess with them.
No.
They're incredibly intelligent. They teach them in the parks, which some people dislike, and probably not the best place for a killer whale. But as you can see out in the wild, obviously a pretty smart creature.
All right, Jeff, it's always a fascinating departure from the day-to-day into the bigger, wide world, into the expanses of the oceans around the world, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, that's Jeff Dudas. You can find those stories and a whole lot more up on his website, underwatertimes.com.